I'm here this afternoon in Belton, Texas with Crystal Fisher and Nancy Kelsey, and I appreciate your time this afternoon. Understand y'all worked the election on March 1st. Y'all worked in the same precinct together?
Yes.
What precinct?
It's the one at the Mayburn Center.
Is that a big one?
303. It's the largest. It turns out the largest amount of votes in that precinct,
Okay.
above all the rest of them.
Did anything unusual happen at your vote center on March 1st as compared to previous elections?
Compared to, for example, last election, the Democrats did not send anybody to take care of their books.
Okay.
Okay, so that put a little bit more on us to work, because we worked the Republican side. That put more on us, so we had to handle both Republican and Democrat. So
Right.
it was such a busy day, and that was the day that Obama was elected. Oh, that was the Obama vote, rather. And by the end of the day, we did a tally, and we ran one person a minute through, starting at 7 a.m., ending at 7 p.m.
Now
One person a
you're
minute.
talking about in a prior election?
Yes, ma'am. prior
Okay.
election. So that was
Okay.
somewhat unusual.
Okay.
This
But this
election-
time, what happened this time?
Well, with the Democrats, there was a man who showed up, and then I thought he was going to stay, but he didn't. A lady came, she handled the books. I found out that she had never worked an election before. And it's like, oh my gosh, bless her heart. And she was the only one working
Yeah,
that
we
side.
told him that we would help, but the man said we
He was
couldn't.
protective of their books. Apparently he called the Democratic
Someone.
chairman, and so they said, no, we'll take care of our books.
Okay, I've got to ask, in your county, does the county election administrator offer training?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Is everyone required to go through the training before the election?
Yes, and if you don't, then you need to go through it online.
Okay.
Now,
So you have an online
regardless,
option.
Right, regardless, she may have done that.
Okay.
I don't know. She may have done that, but the point I'm making is there was only one person to handle that table. We had three handling ours. Now, historically, Republicans do really have more Republican turnout than we do a Democratic turnout.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it was about, 3:30 or so, was when I started looking up and seeing people standing against the wall, because we were that busy. And it's like, what's going on? And there were people over here sitting behind us, and they were a little bit noisy, but I'm seeing people in here that are just lingering that should not have been in there. And did that start? What time did you say that started?
Probably about 3 or 3:30.
And that's,
So
yeah.
who were these people?
well, that's what I was saying. What are these people doing here? And just standing. And they said, well, they're waiting to vote. And I'm going, waiting to vote? And they said they ran out of ballots. And I'm going, you have got to be kidding.
So they ran out of the Democrat
Yes,
ballots?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So did they send a call in and get some more ballots to be delivered?
She did. I don't know.
I think the election judge
Did he
called. I
call
don't
in?
think she
Okay.
did.
And she may not have seen it coming to an
Yeah,
end.
she should have really let the judge know
Mm-hmm.
that I'm getting low, but that didn't happen.
Okay. So from the Republican side, did y'all run out of ballots?
No,
Not at all?
no.
Very good. You're the first ones.
We
that
got
I've heard.
close, but we did not run out.
So you were given ample ones based on your past, I guess,
Past history.
past history. Okay.
And I believe they probably were too. I think, honestly speaking, they probably were too. There was an incredible turnout for the Democrats.
Okay. So did y'all witness anybody being not allowed to vote or turned away or gave up waiting or anything along that line?
No, when I started seeing them backing up and asking, what are these people doing in here? Well, they haven't voted yet. If I was not so busy, and because of the crowd, the people who were sitting over here behind me, who were a little bit noisier, if I had not been so busy, I would not have hesitated to have stood up and said, excuse me, every one of you out of here. because they were sitting there talking on their cell phones, talking amongst themselves, just being noisy.
So they were allowed to have electronics inside the voting center?
We did not have electronics. We have a
She
paper
means-
ballot.
I'm
Oh.
talking about cell phones and things like
They
that.
did it, and when I told them they couldn't have cell phones in there, they wouldn't put them up.
So y'all, so I have to ask, if we have somebody do that in the county I'm from, we're authorized to call the police to handle the situation. And so y'all
That
don't,
was not done.
Well, had I not been so busy, I would have stood up and I
Okay.
would have made a point out of that. Now, it would not have bothered me one iota. Our Joe White, our precinct chairman, was equally busy. And there was so much that was going on so quickly, so
And they were
rapidly.
sort of
And they were
unhappy.
They were belligerent. They were irritated. They were angry that they. did
and these
not
were the
get to
people
vote.
who were wanting to vote Democrat.
Right.
Do y'all have signs posted about no cell phone use and all?
Yes.
Okay, so they were breaking the law. That's actually a federal law that those people were breaking at that time. To my understanding, I could be incorrect. It could be a state law. Are there any other irregularities that y'all witnessed that day?
I would not say really irregularities. What we did notice was that there were in our area, the blacks are typically Democrat, and there were a number of blacks voting on our side. That's their choice. They were voting Republican, and I remember a couple coming back after they took the ballot, and they turned around to come back and ask a question. Well, we'd given them all the instructions on what to do. I understood they had a question. Nancy also saw the same thing happening, is that they came back to say, can we vote for just one person? And we said, of course you can. Absolutely, that's your prerogative, that's your right. And so they turned and went back. Now, I can tell you that number one, they did not know any of the names on that ballot. I can promise you they did not know any of the names on that ballot, okay? Because these were people who, number one, do not vote. And number two, if they did, they would not have recognized the names. So, number three, if you are a black Democrat, for example, and believe me, I am not racist. I'm really not. Right hand of God, swear me in, okay? But if you were a black coming to vote on the Republican side, you tell me, what one person would they have voted for? I'm asking.
On the Republican side? I don't know, because I'm
Okay.
not
Well,
black.
Okay, well, yeah, neither am I, but I can assure you, they did not cross over to vote for either Trump or Cruz or any of the other
Well,
people
one
who are
actually
running.
Ben
told
Carson
me-
is black, so,
One actually told, he wasn't on, was he? One actually told me why he was over there voting. He was voting, yeah, he said he was voting for Bushine.
but that's his right, if
Right,
he
absolutely.
wants to
Absolutely.
do
Yes,
his
ma'am.
vote
Yes, ma'am.
for one particular person.
Yes, ma'am. The only point I was trying to make is that it was very evident who they would have voted for.
Why they were crossing
Why
over.
they were crossing over. Now, I've heard a rumor that maybe some were paid. It was just a rumor. I've also heard about a black minister who directed his congregation. And apparently that's even known to Molly. She was aware of that. So, and again,
But but on that black pastor directing his congregation, I'm assuming by what you're saying that it was not to vote for Molly White, but to vote for her opponent?
yes,
Okay, just to be,
I believe that was pretty clear.
okay.
But we didn't get a chance to see the votes, so that's just a guess on my part.
Right. Anything else in particular? Anything else that you've heard in the community or have learned firsthand knowledge of that people experienced or had problems with?
No, not really. I know when finally the ballots came in, and it was a couple of hours before they came in. So the line was really getting long. And when it was 7 o'clock, we wrapped up our books, and I said, well, let me go outside and see if there's anyone in the hallway that's still voting Republican. So we can wrap our books up and then help
Right.
the other side. And so when I went out there, I was just surprised how many people I saw backed up. You know, just that it was a surprise.
So based on past history, you've never witnessed, have you worked that poll previously?
A number of years, yes,
Or,
ma'am.
okay. Have you ever seen that strong of a Democrat turnout? Other
No.
than Obama, you
Yeah,
were
I was
mentioning.
gonna say no, and let me qualify that. Because I did miss one of the votes, and that's, I believe you saw it, when the Common Core had come into the area and they had taken people out of the nursing homes and got them registered to vote, and so they brought them in a bus. Weren't you one of them that saw that? And so these were people from a nursing home that were crippled, that couldn't walk, that couldn't see, you know, that were, you know, unable to do much of anything. And so I'm guessing that they probably had someone help them vote. You know, that's they have that opportunity. So
Based on what you're sharing, it sounds like this community potentially has a history of people going to great extremes to have people vote a certain way.
apparently,
Okay?
that's my
I
guesstimate.
think what was different that day was the number of Democrats that were voting Republican and told us. 'Cause that, it was probably about 10 or 11 o'clock when I was wondering why are they coming over here to vote?
So of course, you're not to discuss, who people are voting for and this, that, and another, but you do hear chatter as they go through, and then you're telling them, you can't talk in here about that. Do you feel like they were coming in because of the people that Trump pulled in, a lot who
No, it
have
was
crossed
local.
over?
No.
But you
They
think
told
it's
us
totally
that-
local?
Yeah, well, they said it was local. And she asked me if I could vote local, and I showed her what the ballot looked like. I said, well, I can show you what the ballot looks like. But no, I think all of them said
Yeah,
they were,
vote
they
local.
just, they were wanting
And-
to vote local.
And when you're
it-
saying the local vote, it's specifically you're discussing the Molly White versus Hugh Shine race, which is really a state race.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And which is half, I understand their district is half of Bell County. So,
Their district being, oh, yes.
for the state,
Okay,
yeah,
right.
right.
There had been enough that had shown up even on the internet, on YouTube, videos of some stunts that Hugh Shine had pulled. Someone put up, well, look what Hugh Shine is doing, with regards to taking down Molly's sign and pushing Molly's back and putting his up and,
Right.
things like that. But that does happen.
It
That
does. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
it does
unfortunately
happen.
How the day ended was the ballots showed up. Well, I came back, we wrapped our books up, and there was one lady who said, oh, wait a minute, I made a mistake. I meant to get the other side. So I said, stop. I have to pull everything out again. So I just took care of her personally so that the other people could go help the Democratic side and
Right.
help them with their books.
Right.
But the ballot showed up. It was on Xerox paper, which our ballots are a heavier white
Sure.
cardstock.
Sample
It's on-
ballot.
It
Right.
had sample on it, and because it was sample written across the two little blocks that you fill in, if it had been run through, it would have counted two opposing votes.
Right.
Automatically, whether you had it marked or not. So a number of the people got very upset because they were voting on something that said sample ballot.
Right.
I cannot
And
blame
we
them.
didn't put it in the machine, we had a box
Right.
to put it in.
Open
They wanna know
box.
why you put it in the box,
Yeah.
which,
That was a good
Yes.
question to ask.
Very,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah.
So by the end of the day, when we got all this taken care of, all we could direct them to was to call their Democratic Party
Chair.
chairman, or whoever they would like to call who's in charge of Bell County, and they can discuss it at that point.
Okay. Interesting because you're saying the ballots that ran out were the Democrat ones, But yet at the same time, you're saying that what appeared to be a lot of Democrats were crossing over to vote in that one race. So they weren't using Democrat ballots. They were
No.
using Republican
Which
ones.
probably was why ours got used up a little bit more, why ours came a little bit shy.
No, we got closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The following morning, I listened to our Bell County chairman, and the reason he gave was Bell County's had a lot of influx of people who moved in, and so we've had a lot of new voters. And so they were explaining it off that way, you know. It sounded good. Sounds good, doesn't it? Do I believe it? No way.
What's bringing in all the new voters?
Well, because there's been a lot of people moving into Bell County, that's come out of Austin. I mean, there's just, this area has grown considerably. So they were saying that there were so many additional voters that had moved into this.
Well,
into
they
our
should have
area.
known, they should have been registered, so. I mean,
Yes, they
it couldn't
should.
have been
Right.
much of a surprise.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else, ladies?
We discussed this amongst ourselves afterwards. The two of us did, with respect to Molly losing. And I can say I know Molly personally through the Central Texas Tea Party, and I'm very impressed with her. When she won, she made a pact that she said, I will not increase taxes. I will not vote for anything to increase taxes. And you couldn't help but admire that.
Yeah.
And she was very, and she, when she was in town, she would go to the Tea Party meetings once a month. So when she was here, she would show up. So I was very impressed with Molly. So in talking, then we find out that, when they ran the ballots, that it was like 117 that had voted, 117 difference, and that's why she lost. Is 117 voted for Hugh Shine. So I had to question how much of that 117 would have come out of our precinct. And yet, if I'm trying to be absolutely fair and honest, all we needed was 10 in each precinct. Would have made up that 117.
Yeah,
So-
we probably had more than that, oh, I know we had more than that crossed over.
Yeah,
But now, I
More
can't
than
say
10.
who they all voted for, I don't have any idea, except
No.
for that one.
So and so my consensus on this, at the end of the day, I was so disappointed. I was so upset the next day. All I could say is I know how elections are thrown. And
And
now I've seen it.
so based on what you experienced that day, you feel very strongly that someone potentially could have done a lot of side work
Right,
to move the votes in a certain direction.
right.
Okay.
Now, my suggestion to you is after you go back and write your article up, we have another vote coming up in November. Pay attention to Bell County and see what the Democrats versus Republican vote comes in at.
Interesting. Yeah.
The majority in our precinct, 303, like I said, it is the largest one. And it's the busiest, which is why when we had this election coming up, I'm talking to my precinct captain, chairman, I said, oh, please, give us more
I don't
people.
want to do this again.
Give us more people,
Yeah.
And then in talking to this poor little lady who had not worked an election before, even though you go through the class, it's still overwhelming when you have so many steps to get someone signed in.
Right.
She needed more help. And all I could tell her is I said, you need to rake him over the coals. I said, he did not treat you fairly. He should have called you at some point during the day to say, how are you doing? How are things going? Maybe I can show up after 5 o'clock for a couple of hours to help.
Especially since he told us we couldn't help her. Now, we
Yeah, in the
ended up
beginning,
helping her,
in the
or
beginning.
she would have never gotten
Right.
through.
Yeah. Y'all still be there doing,
Yeah.
waiting for her to finish paperwork.
So we clocked out at 9 o'clock. And so, that's 2 hours extra over the 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there were a lot of unhappy people because of the sample ballot issue.
Yeah.
And I can understand that.
So the sample ballots at your poll were Democrat side,
Yes.
not the Republican.
Right.
Okay.
I believe that's probably the way it was across Bell County.
Yeah, everybody has a little different story on how,
Okay.
or if they got ballots,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
All right. Ladies, I appreciate your time. Thank you for
Goodwood.
sharing your story.